There's a quiet fear that creeps in for a lot of people the moment retirement stops being a someday thing and starts becoming a right now thing. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as a single thought in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. Did I do enough? And then, just under that, a second thought that's even harder to sit with. Is what I built actually safe? Before we continue, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, this would be a really good time to do it. I've got a lot more of these waiting for you. Because here's the truth almost nobody talks about. The real question isn't whether you saved enough. It's whether what you saved can survive the things that come for it once you stop working. And those things, the ones that quietly chip away at the strongest looking nest eggs, are the things almost nobody warns you about until it's too late. Let me explain what I mean. Most people walk into retirement focused on one number. They look at their 401k, their IRA, the savings account they spent decades feeding, and they ask, is this enough? And if the number looks big, they relax. They take a breath. They tell themselves the hard part is over. But the hard part isn't over. The hard part is just starting. Because retirement isn't about the size of the pile you walk in with. It's about how that pile holds up against the silent forces that begin pulling on it the moment you stop earning. The goal of retirement is not wealth. It's income. It's certainty. It's the quiet confidence of knowing the money will still be there next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, no matter what the world throws at you. Now let me show you what I mean with two real people. Not statistics, not averages, just two human beings with two different stories. Let's meet Frank. Frank is 67. He spent over 3 decades working a steady, dependable job. Nothing flashy, no big windfalls, just consistency. If you saw him walking down the street, you wouldn't think, there goes someone financially secure. You might actually think the opposite. Frank lives in a modest home. He drives an older car. And if you looked strictly at his savings, you'd probably panic for him. Because Frank has around $140,000 saved. By the standards you've been taught, Frank is behind. Way behind. The internet would tell Frank he's in trouble. The headlines would tell him he failed. But here's what you don't see when you only look at that number. Frank has a monthly pension. He has Social Security income. His home is fully paid off. Every single month, without touching his savings, money shows up consistently, predictably, in good markets and bad. Frank is not struggling. Frank is not stressed. Frank is living a life that works. Now let's meet Gary. Gary did everything right, at least according to the rules he was given. He saved aggressively. He invested diligently. He followed the benchmarks. And today, Gary has $800,000 saved. On paper, Gary is a success story, but Gary doesn't feel like one. Gary still has a mortgage. Gary doesn't have a pension. Gary relies heavily on his investment account to fund his life. Every market fluctuation feels personal. Every news headline about a recession lands a little harder. Gary has more money than Frank, but less peace. And here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. It's not about who has more saved. It's about who has more certainty. Now I want to talk to you about the things that came for Gary's nest egg. The things that come for everyone's nest egg, even the ones that look bulletproof. Because this is where the conversation usually gets uncomfortable. And this is exactly where you need to lean in. The first force is inflation. And I want you to understand something about inflation because it's not what most people think it is. Inflation is not a headline. It's not a number on the news. Inflation is a thief that works the night shift. It doesn't kick in your door. It doesn't break a window. It just slowly raises the cost of bread, of gas, of insurance, of medicine, of the things you can't stop buying. It silently erodes the buying power of every single dollar you saved. And here's what makes it so dangerous. The dollar in your account looks the same. The number on the screen doesn't change. But what that dollar can actually buy gets smaller every year. Invisibly, steadily, the silent pressure builds. Think of it this way. Imagine you walk into a grocery store with a $20 bill. 10 years ago, that $20 filled a small cart. Today, it barely fills a basket. You didn't lose money. The money lost itself. That's what inflation does to a retiree's savings, except it doesn't do it in one trip. It does it every day, every month, every year, for the rest of your life. And if your retirement plan didn't account for that, the nest egg you thought was safe is quietly shrinking while you sleep. Here's a question. If you had to choose between more money or more certainty, which would it be? Keep that in your head as we go. The second force that comes for your nest egg is something most people have never even heard of, but it's one of the most dangerous risks in retirement. It's called sequence of returns risk. And I'm not going to throw a textbook at you. I'm going to give you a picture instead. Imagine 2 people retire with the exact same amount of money. Same plan, same expenses, same withdrawals, same investments. The only difference between them is the order in which the market moves. The first person retires into a few good years. The market grows, their account grows. And even though they're pulling money out every month, the gains do most of the heavy lifting. They're fine. The second person retires into a bad couple of years. The market drops right at the start. They're still pulling money out for living expenses, but now they're pulling from a shrinking account. Every withdrawal locks in a loss. And here's the cruel part. Even if the market eventually recovers, their account may never fully recover because too much was pulled out at the bottom. Same money, same plan, same withdrawals. Two completely different outcomes. That's sequence of returns risk. And it's the kind of thing that destroys nest eggs, not because the person did anything wrong, but because the timing wasn't on their side. This is why income matters more than size. When you have guaranteed income covering your essentials, you don't have to sell investments at the worst possible time. You can let the market breathe. You can let it recover. Your foundation isn't shaking just because the furniture is moving around. The third force is something nobody likes to talk about, but it's the one that hits hardest. Healthcare costs. And I'm not talking about a doctor visit here and there. I'm talking about the slow, steady, multi-decade pressure of staying alive in a system that gets more expensive every single year. Most people walk into retirement and underestimate their healthcare costs by a lot. Not a little, by a lot. They think Medicare is going to handle everything. It doesn't. Medicare leaves gaps. There are premiums, deductibles, copays, prescriptions, dental, vision, hearing, long-term care, the things that creep, nudge, and quietly erode your monthly budget month after month after month. And the older you get, the more these costs grow, even as your ability to earn shrinks. Here's what you need to know. The healthier you are today, the more you should plan for healthcare costs tomorrow. Because the longer you live, the longer those costs follow you. That's not pessimism, it's realism. And in this case, realism isn't negative, it's empowering. Because once you see it clearly, you can plan for it instead of being blindsided by it. The fourth force that destroys nest eggs is one of the most painful, and it's something married couples almost never want to think about. Survivorship. What happens when one spouse passes away? People plan their retirement around two incomes, two Social Security checks, sometimes two pensions. And then one day, one of those checks disappears. The bills don't disappear. The mortgage doesn't disappear. The property taxes, the utilities, the groceries, the insurance, none of it disappears. But the income just got cut, sometimes dramatically. And the surviving spouse, often grieving, often overwhelmed, suddenly has to make financial decisions in the worst possible state of mind. Here's a question for the married folks. Have you and your spouse ever actually talked about what happens if one of you is gone? Not the emotional part, the financial part. Because if the answer is no, that's one of the most important conversations you can have this year. Not next year. This year. Because survivorship planning isn't morbid. It's love expressed through preparation. Now let me talk to you about Social Security, because this is where so many people leave money on the table without ever knowing it. I want you to think of your Social Security benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe, one you've been filling your entire working life. Every paycheck, every tax contribution, it all builds pressure in that pipe. Now here's how it works. The longer you wait to turn the faucet on, the stronger the pressure becomes. Wait until 70, the flow is powerful. Turn it on at 62, the flow is lighter. But here's the part most people don't think about. That faucet belongs to you. You paid into it. And if you wait too long to turn it on, some of that water never reaches you. It just stays in the pipe, unused, gone. So the real question isn't, should you take Social Security at 62? The real question is, when does taking it actually make sense for your life right now? Because if you have health concerns, if you have a family history of shorter lifespans, if you need the income to live with dignity today, instead of waiting for a bigger check that may or may not come, then taking it earlier might be the right move for you. And if you're healthy, if you have other income streams, if you can afford to wait, then waiting might multiply your benefit in ways that protect you for decades. The point is, the answer isn't on a website. It's not in a calculator. It's in your life. And speaking of calculators, here's something interesting. The Social Security Administration used to have a simple online calculator that estimated your benefits. They actually pulled it back, partly because so many people were using it incorrectly, plugging in wrong assumptions, walking away with numbers that didn't reflect their real situation, and then making decisions based on those numbers, decisions that couldn't always be undone. Let that sink in. The tool was so easy to misuse that it caused more harm than help, which tells you something important. This stuff is not as simple as the headlines make it sound. Your retirement deserves more thought than a 5-minute calculator. Now let me address the elephant in the room, the big number, the one you've been told you need. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $1.4 million, maybe it's $2 million, depending on which article you read this week. I want you to imagine walking onto a car lot. Every vehicle has a sticker price, bold, official, intimidating. It looks final, non-negotiable. But if you've ever bought a car, you already know the truth. Nobody pays the sticker. There are hidden discounts, dealer incentives, timing advantages, negotiation room. The real price is almost always lower. But the sticker exists to anchor your expectations, to make you feel like anything below it is a win, even if you're still overpaying. Now take that exact same system and apply it to retirement. That $1.4 million number, that's your sticker price. It's not your real price. It's a number designed to make you feel behind, no matter what you've actually built. Here's the thing. Most people are being told they are behind when they're not. You may already be standing on one of the strongest financial foundations available today and not even know it. You may already have what people with millions are searching for. Because the people with the biggest numbers aren't always the ones sleeping the best. The people sleeping the best are the ones whose income covers their life. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your monthly income will actually look like when you retire? Be honest with yourself. Not the hope number, not the wish number, the real number. Because most people have never sat down and written it out. And you can't plan against a number you've never looked at. I want you to imagine your retirement in two parts. Not one big number, two distinct piles. Pile 1, income that shows up no matter what. This includes things like Social Security, pensions, annuities if you have them, rental income if you have it, money that continues whether the market is up or down. Pile 2, your savings, your investments, your accounts, the stuff that grows when things are good and shrinks when things are bad. Now here's the critical mistake most people make. They focus almost entirely on Pile 2 while barely acknowledging Pile 1. And yet, Pile 1 is often doing far more heavy lifting than people realize. Pile 1 is the invisible asset. It doesn't show up on a brokerage statement. It doesn't get a fancy app notification. It just shows up every month like clockwork, doing its job quietly. Think of it this way. Your income floor is like the foundation of your house. Strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings? That's more like the furniture. Nice to have, comfortable, but it sits on top of something else. Most people focus on decorating the furniture while ignoring whether the foundation is solid. And when a storm hits, when the market drops, when inflation surges, when health costs climb, the furniture moves around. The foundation doesn't. Let me throw something out there. What's the one thing about retirement that worries you most? Sit with that for a second, because most people have an answer they've never said out loud. And the moment you say it, you can plan for it. Now, I want to talk about the cost of living adjustment, what people call COLA. Social Security has a built-in raise every year that's supposed to keep up with inflation. Sounds great, right? Here's the catch. COLA is based on a specific formula, and that formula doesn't always reflect what retirees actually spend money on. Retirees don't spend like 25-year-olds. They spend more on healthcare, more on housing, more on the things that inflate the fastest. So even when COLA goes up, it often doesn't fully cover the things that are actually getting more expensive in your life. It's a raise that quietly falls behind. And over 10, 15, 20 years of retirement, that gap adds up. Not all at once, just like inflation, invisibly, steadily. The silent pressure of falling a little further behind each year. Here's a thought. If the system only rewards you with almost enough, you will spend your entire life chasing more. How does that make you feel? Because that's the trap. The system is designed to keep you almost there, almost safe, almost prepared, almost enough. And the way out of that trap isn't more money. It's more clarity. Let me be clear about something. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to wake you up. There's a difference. Fear paralyzes, awareness empowers. And once you see how these forces work, inflation, sequence risk, health costs, survivorship, COLA gaps, the sticker price illusion, you stop being a passenger in your own retirement. You start being the driver. You stop measuring yourself against everyone else. You stop feeling behind and start focusing on what truly gives you freedom. Because numbers matter, but how you feel about those numbers, that matters just as much. Here's a question. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right, but still felt behind? You are not alone. That feeling isn't a sign that you failed. It's a sign that you've been measuring yourself with the wrong ruler. The ruler that says you need $1 million. The ruler that compares you to a stranger on a website. The ruler that ignores your pension, your home, your Social Security, your health, your life. Throw that ruler out. Build a new one. One that measures your income against your expenses, your foundation against your storms, your peace against your fear. Here's what I want you to do. First, figure out your income floor. What money is coming in every month, no matter what? Social Security, pensions, anything stable and predictable? That number matters more than you've been told. Write it down. Look at it. Respect it. Because that number is the part of your retirement that can't be destroyed by a bad year in the market. Second, calculate your real expenses. Not based on your old salary, based on your actual life. Housing, food, healthcare, travel, the things you truly care about. Pull out your bank statements from the last 12 months and look at what you actually spent, not what you think you spent. The truth is in the numbers. Third, find the gap. What's the difference between your income and your expenses? That gap is what your savings need to cover. Not $1.4 million, not some generic benchmark, just the gap. And once you see that, the entire conversation changes. Fourth, Build a buffer, not a target. Don't aim for just enough. Aim for enough plus breathing room, because life doesn't always go according to the spreadsheet. And fifth, have the conversations. With your spouse, with your family, with anyone whose life is tied to your decisions. Because a plan in your head isn't a plan. A plan that's been spoken out loud, written down, and shared. That's a plan. You don't need perfection to have a successful retirement. You don't need to get everything exactly right. What you need is awareness, clarity, and the willingness to face the real numbers so you can make real decisions. The retirees who thought their savings were safe and watched it slip away weren't reckless. They weren't lazy. They weren't bad with money. They just didn't see the forces working against them because no one ever told them where to look. Now you know where to look. Now you can see the inflation that quietly chips away, the sequence risk that punishes bad timing, the health costs that creep in slowly, the survivorship gap that hits like a wave, the COLA shortfall that falls behind year after year. And once you see them, you can plan around them. You can build a foundation strong enough to hold up no matter what the world does next. Because retirement isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of something new. A new rhythm, a new pace, a new way of living. And the goal isn't just to survive it. The goal is to enjoy it. To wake up without financial stress, to make decisions without fear, to live with confidence, not hesitation. If the system only rewards you with almost enough, you will spend your entire life chasing more. But if you understand your numbers, if you build your income, if you define your life on your terms, you don't chase anymore. You decide. And that's the shift. From fear to clarity, from chasing to choosing, from not enough to enough. If this video made you think differently about your retirement, subscribe. The next one goes even deeper. I'll see you there.